All right, hello, grade 10s. Here is the video for Unit 3, Lesson 7. And Unit 3, Lesson 7 will be about factoring type number 3. So far we've learned factoring types 1 and 2. So type number 1 would have been Lesson 5. And that was factoring type 1 where you remove the greatest common factor. Lesson 6 would have been factoring type 2, which was difference of squares, and every question was a binomial, had 2 terms in it. Factoring type 3 is about trinomials. So every question that I give you today will be a trinomial, okay, where the first term will be a term that's squared. The second term will have just an x, and then the final term will be a constant, so just a number. But what's important about type 3 is that a equals 1. So what that means is, if we look at where a is here, that's the number in front of the x squared. So the number in front of the x squared will always be a 1 today, meaning there's actually going to be nothing there because like a 1 doesn't matter, right? We don't need to write them, okay? And then type 4, what we'll do tomorrow, will be when there is a number there besides 1, okay? So what I'm going to do first is I'm just going to review multiplying 2 binomials. So we did multiplying in lesson 4. There was a question on your quiz. And so you should know by now how to multiply 2 binomials together. We go the first term times the first term there. So we get x squared. Then we go x times 4, which is 4x. Then negative 3 times x is negative 3x. And negative 3 times 4 is negative 12. You always have to try to simplify if you can, similar terms. So the x squared won't change, but in the middle, 4x minus 3x, or just 4 minus 3, is positive 1. X minus 12. Now you don't need to write that 1 there if you don't want. That's optional, okay? 1s are optional when they're in front of a letter. So that's multiplying 2 binomials together. What we'll be doing today is you'll be going backwards. That's what factoring is. So I'm going to give you something that looks like that. I'll give you the trinomial, and you have to factor it back to the original question. What were the 2 brackets that we multiplied together to give us this? So today we're going to be looking for those 2 brackets. Okay? So to factor trinomials of this form, where a equals 1, right? That's the number in front of x squared, so there's actually a 1 there. This is what we need to do. We need to determine 2 numbers that multiply for the constant term, okay? So this right here is the constant term, the number all by itself. So we have to think of 2 numbers that could multiply to give us 12. Well, there's a few options, right? 1 times 12, 2 times 6, 3 times 4. But the 2 numbers we choose have to also add or subtract for the middle term, which is the 1 there. That's the middle term, the 1. So we need 2 numbers that multiply for 12, but those same 2 numbers can add or subtract to give us 1. Okay, so I'm just going to jump into an example here, okay? All right, so here we go. We have the trinomial x squared minus 2x minus 8. So we know that we're looking for the 2 brackets that multiply together to give us that trinomial. What you always start out with is the 2 brackets, and whatever letter we're dealing with, so we're dealing with the letter X here, we're going to throw one of those in front of each bracket. Okay, so that's the easy part. Now comes the work. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the 8, that's that constant term at the end, and we're going to think of the ways to multiply for 8. Well, there's only 2 options, 1 times 8 or 2 times 4. So we know it's going to be one of those pairs. But the pair that we choose, those 2 numbers have to also add or subtract to give us this number, negative 2. So we ask ourselves, could 1 and 8 ever add or subtract with each other to give 2? No. If you add them, you get 9. If you subtract them, you get 7. So that's not going to be our answer. But if we look at 2 and 4, could we somehow work with 2 and 4 to add or subtract them to give us a negative 2? Yeah, they have a gap of 2, so we'll probably be able to make that work. So we're going to go with 2 and 4. Now, it doesn't matter where you write the 2 or where you write the 4. You can go 2 then 4 or 4 then 2. Doesn't matter. What does matter are the symbols. And this is where students usually have a little bit of trouble, okay? So we want 2 and 4 to multiply together to give us this final term, -8. Okay, well, 2 times 4 does not give us -8. In order to multiply two numbers together and get a negative, one of the two has to be negative. Okay? A negative times a positive equals a negative. So one of them will be negative, one of them will be positive. But we want them to add or subtract to give us -2. So we want to add or subtract 2 and 4 to give us that middle term, -2. And the only way to do that, if we want to end up with a -2, we would have to start with a +2 and then subtract the 4. That's the only way we can get -2 from those two numbers, is going 2 minus 4. Okay, so if we look at this here, I am letting the 2 stay positive, but the 4 has to be negative. So if I write that up here, I'm letting the 2 stay positive and the 4 be negative, same thing. And let's just check that that works. Does +2 times -4 equal -8? Yes, it does. So there I figured out my symbols, that I want the 2 to be positive and the 4 to be negative. And there you go, you found the two original brackets. Okay. X squared minus 8x plus 7. So you always start the same way, x and x in two brackets. Now, we have to think of two numbers that multiply for 7. Well, guess what? 7 is a prime number. So the only way to multiply for 7 is 1 and 7. That's our only option. Let's just check. Could 1 and 7 somehow add or subtract to give us that middle term? Could they somehow give us 8? Well, yes, they could. So we know that 7 and 1 are our numbers. Now, the symbols. We want 7 and 1 to multiply together to give us a +7. That's what the trinomial says. Okay, so listen, there's kind of tricks here. The only way you can multiply two numbers together and get a positive is if the symbols are the same. So it has to be either negative and negative or positive and positive. They have to be the same. Okay, so we know they're going to be the same symbol. But what would our symbols be if we want to add or subtract them to make a -8 from the middle? The only way to get a -8 is if you start with a -7 and subtract one more. So -7 minus 1 would give us -8. And then if we copied those same symbols here, -7 times -1 is +7, which is what we want. So there we go. Negative. Moving on. All right. Y is our letter this time. So I have two brackets with Y's in them now. All right. So I have to think of two numbers that multiply for 20. 1 times 20, 2 times 10, 4 times 5. Those are my options. So you're going to look at your three options here and tell me which of these three pairs could somehow add or subtract to give us the middle number, 12. 2 and 10. Okay, so we know we're going to write a 2 and a 10. Remember, order doesn't matter there. A little hint, you don't think about symbols for this guy. When the symbols are both positive there, they'll both be positive there. So that's kind of a freebie. Both positive in the trinomial, they'll both be positive in your answer. Okay, I think that was the last one in that row. Yep. Okay, moving up to the next column here. Okay, so this is where I'm going to get a little bit freaky on you. We're going to kick it up a notch. Sorry, that was just my chair, me almost falling over. Okay, so here's the thing. We want our trinomial to always be in the correct order. So if we look back at the title, this is the order. We should have the x squared term out front and the constant at the end. So that's not the case here. So I'm actually going to rearrange this trinomial. I want my -4t squared to be my leader. The squared term is what goes out front. Okay. I want my constant term, a +128, to always end the trinomial. So that just leaves the -16t to be my middle term now. Okay, here's the problem. We have another problem. The trinomials that we're dealing with today, I specifically said a had to equal 1. Here's the a, the number in front of the t squared, and it does not equal 1. Okay, so what we have to do is take it out, because I can take out, or I can divide 4 from every term. So I'm actually going to start this question with type 1 of factoring, removing the GCF. I'm going to remove the 4. Now remember what I said about type 1. If the first term is negative, you should also take the negative out. So I am dividing each term by -4. Okay, so if I take out that -4, I'm left with just t squared. -16 divided by that -4 is now +4. Don't forget the t. And 128 divided by 4, sorry, I didn't, it's 32. Let me just double check. 128 divided by 4, 32. But it's -32, be careful, because it's +128 divided by a -4. Okay, so there we go. We're not done. All we've done so far is just type 1. Now, with the trinomial that's left in there, now we can move on to type 3, the type that we've been doing all lessons so far. So we know it's always going to be 2 brackets. Our letter in this case is t, and the only difference is you just have that -4 following you down. It's just going to hang out front. Okay, so now we have to think of 2 numbers that multiply for 32. Well, we have quite a few options. Let's just write them down. 1 times 32, 2 times 16, 3 doesn't work, 4 times 8, 5 doesn't work, 6 doesn't work, 7 doesn't work, and we're back to 8, and we've already done 8. So I guess 3 options, not so bad. Which of those 3 options could give you the middle number when you add or subtract them? And it would be 4 and 8. They have a gap of 4. Okay, so we know it's going to be 4 and 8. Now we have to figure out our symbols. So we want these 2 numbers to multiply together to give us a -32. The only way to multiply 2 numbers together and get a negative result is having 1 of each symbol. So one will be positive, one will be negative. But we want the 2 numbers to result in a +4 when we add or subtract them. The only way to have 1 of each symbol and still result in a +4 would be starting with a -4 and then adding 8 to it. And if we go -4 times +8, that would still give us -32. So there we go. We would want the 4 to be our negative and the 8 to be our positive, and we're done. Okay, next one, same thing. It's out of order. So I'm going to rearrange. I'm going to put the m squared out front. I'll put that +7m in the middle, and then the -30, my constant term, goes at the back. I don't have any other problems here. The number in front here is 1. That's what I want, so we can just go right ahead. So my letter is M. That goes out front. Ways to multiply for 30. 1 times 30, 2 times 15, 3 times 10, and 5 times 6. Sorry, there's another one. Okay, so which of these 4 options could somehow give us a 7 if we added or subtracted them? And it would be 3 and 10. So 3 and 10. Now, we want it to multiply to be a negative. So whenever that's the case, you're going to have 1 of each symbol. Okay, so it's either going to be like this or like this. Okay, so which option would I choose if I wanted it to result in a +7? Well, it would be this option right there. -3, add 10, you'll get us to the positive side again. Okay, 2 more, almost done. Okay, first thing I'm going to do here is rearrange. So d squared out front, 5d in the middle, -5d, and -24 at the end. Okay, so we think of the ways to multiply for 24. 1 times 24, 2 times 12, 3 times 8, 4 times 6. Which of those options could somehow give me a 5? Which ones of these has like a difference or a gap of 5? It would be 3 and 8. So we know it's going to be D and 3, D and 8. Now for my symbols. Okay, again, I want it to multiply to be a negative. Whenever that's the case, you know you're going to have one of each symbol. So which combo would it be? If you want them to result in a -5, it would be this combo right here. Start with +3 and then you subtract 8, you would become a -5. Okay, last one. Here, it's in the right order for once, finally, but the problem here is the 6, okay? So we have to always try to take it out. Can I divide 6 from every term? Yes, I can. So when I remove a 6, I have a squared minus 11a plus 10. So I just divided each term by 6. Okay. A for 10, my two options are 1 times 10 and 2 times 5. Which of those could somehow give me 11? There we go. If we added them, 1 plus 10 is 11. So we know we're going to have 1 and 10. Okay, we want the 2 to multiply to become a positive. The only way to do that is to have the same symbol. So either negative, negative, or positive, positive. But if I want them to result in a -11, I would have to do this. -1, take away 10 more, that would give me -11. And that's that. We're done. Okay? So your assignment's written at the bottom there from the textbook. This is our second last lesson. We have one more lesson left. Tomorrow we'll be doing type 4. So type 4 is also polynomials, so ax squared plus bx plus c. But the difference with tomorrow's lesson or type 4 is that the a here, it doesn't equal 1. So you might have like a 3 there or something that we can't get rid of. Like here we got rid of the 6, we took it out. Tomorrow it'll be a number that we cannot take out and we have to deal with it. So that's what's coming up tomorrow. Okay, so as usual, always send me messages if you have any questions, and good luck.